Imagine a calling so clear, so profound, it shakes your very soul. But what if that calling wasn't about justice, but mercy for those you believed deserved none? This is Jonah's raw, gut-wrenching dilemma. God commanded him, "Go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it." But Jonah knew God's heart. He knew this wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation to repentance and a chance for them to be spared. And that was unbearable. Jonah didn't run from the difficulty of the task. He ran from the outcome. He knew God was a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abundant in steadfast love, and relenting from disaster. And that's exactly what Jonah didn't want for Nineveh. He wanted them to face the consequences of their evil, not receive a divine pardon. So he boarded a ship for Tarshish, convinced that if he simply removed himself from the equation, God's mercy couldn't reach those he deemed utterly unworthy. He wasn't running from God's command. He was running from God's radical compassion. But you cannot outrun a love so relentless, so all-encompassing. A monstrous storm descended, a divine interruption. The seasoned sailors facing death found Jonah, who finally confessed. He knew this was God's doing, a cosmic chase. And here's the kicker. When he told them to throw him overboard, it wasn't just penance for his disobedience. It was almost a last-ditch effort to stop God's plan for Nineveh, to sacrifice himself rather than be an instrument of unwanted grace. He preferred the cold embrace of the sea to the warmth of God as boundless mercy for his enemies. With a heavy heart, Jonah made his confession and, with an even heavier spirit, commanded them to cast him overboard. This wasn't just a physical act, it was a desperate, almost defiant, spiritual surrender. As he plunged into the furious waves, the storm miraculously ceased. But for Jonah, a different kind of storm was just beginning. He was swallowed, not just by a giant fish, but by the overwhelming reality of his choices, and the stubborn persistence of a God whose mercy he could not escape. 3 days and 3 nights in that living, breathing tomb. Not a pleasant cruise. In that suffocating darkness, Jonah found his voice, a prayer of desperation, of repentance for his flight, yes. But even in his cry for rescue, there was still that subtle tension. He acknowledged God's power to save him, but deep down, he still wished God wouldn't save them. He was learning humility, but the lesson of boundless, impartial mercy was still a bitter one to swallow. And then, as suddenly as he was swallowed, Jonah was vomited out onto dry land. A second chance. A dramatic re-entry into the world. This time, there was no doubt. God's will would be done whether Jonah liked it or not. He would go to Nineveh, not with joy or eager evangelism, but with a heavy, begrudging heart compelled by a power he couldn't outrun or outwit. And he did. He preached a simple, urgent message. 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. He delivered it, perhaps, with an undercurrent of hope that they wouldn't listen. But something incredible happened. The people of Nineveh, from the king to the common citizen, repented. They turned from their evil ways. And God, seeing their genuine transformation, relented from the disaster he had planned. A city saved. And Jonah, he was furious. His mission was a success, but to him it felt like a profound failure. Jonah marched out of the city and sat down, utterly miserable. He told God, "Didn't I say this would happen when I was still at home? That is why I was so quick to flee to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." He was angry that God had shown mercy to Nineveh. God then provided a plant for shade, which Jonah rejoiced in. But when it withered, Jonah became even angrier, and God's question to Jonah echoes through time. You have been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. But Nineveh has more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and many cattle as well. Should I not be concerned about that great city? The story ends not with Jonah's understanding, but with God's unwavering, sometimes unwanted, mercy. It challenges us. Who do we deem unworthy of grace? And how much do we resist God's love when it extends beyond our comfort zone? Thanks for watching. Share and subscribe for future posts.